Welcome to Business Partners,
a podcast for couple colleagues building a business and life together.
Through interviews, we'll share common struggles and stories unique to partners living and working side by side.
Listen in as we learn what works and doesn't work when working together as a couple.
You ready to do this?
Let's get down to business.
Today on Business Partners, we're joined by one couple with two parallel businesses.
After their own personal health struggles and negative experiences with the traditional American healthcare system, Josh and Katie Whalen launched Blokes Modern Men's Health and ChooseJoi Women's Wellness, telehealth services that prioritize human service over automation.
If you're prioritizing your health in the new year, check them out at blokes.co and ChooseJoi.co. That's JOI.
Josh and Katie Whalen, thank you so much. Welcome to the podcast. We like to start the show, since we only interview couples, by taking us back to when you guys met.
Oh, gosh. We all
How did you become a couple?
We had a mutual friend, and I had a girls' trip. I was living in Chicago at the time. Came down to Denver on a girls' trip, and we hung out with Josh because one of my friends was friends with him. What are you looking at me like that? It was a Red Rocks concert, and it was the Lumineers. And it was,
nice.
At the time, we didn't date for a couple years after that. But at the time, there was some interest and spark. But, it took a couple years for us to actually start dating.
We were both dating we were both in other relationships at the time.
Timing was not right.
And then we were just magically in Aspen at the same time. Unbeknownst to both of our knowledge until I was driving up there. I actually didn't know even when I was driving up there. And then we were at a show at Belly Up, and I asked her out. I was single, and you weren't really single, but I still asked you out. That was it.
And you've been married for how long?
8 years.
8 years now.
8.5.
Yep.
Wow.
2 kiddos. Lenny's almost 6 and Rowdy is almost 3.
Wow.
And it's a lot of work between the company and the babies and our kids. Just life, it doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
Well, since you opened the door, tell us a little bit about your business. So what you guys do, who your target audience is.
Sure. We are a virtual health company. We're licensed in all 50 states. We have a specific niche where we focus on optimization. And I know that word is a pretty general term, but specifically optimizing hormones. And we just think hormones are the catalyst to how the body should work properly, whether it's sexual hormones, weight loss, growth hormones, peptides, anti-aging, longevity. So we're really just an inch wide, a mile deep into just allowing people to feel their best. I say it loosely, but kind of seriously. We make 60-year-olds feel 30. We make 50-year-olds feel 25, and we make 30-year-olds feel like they're 50. I mean, not 15, but just young. We're just very hyper focused on this because it was also intertwined in our personal journeys.
Yeah, take us back to what the impetus was to start it.
I believe it was me threatening you with for it.
Yeah, that was really it was not the start of the business. It was the start of the personal journey. And we were in this really interesting phase like everybody else where COVID had shut down the core business that I was in, which was regenerative medicine or stem cells. And it was it was a really big stop because regulatory wise, nobody was allowed to even do elective procedures. But that was. And, so we were shut down almost hard shut for a solid 60 days. And what was interesting is that was the first time in a very long time, or maybe ever, where I physically and mentally was able to shut down. And And so is so much of the rest of the country. But, by doing that, it allowed like me to reassess my health and reassess our relationship. And what she was demanding out of me was actually able to be heard and understood. Like she was going to divorce me. And, when you're so busy, you just kind of let it flow off the shoulder. And that was like the first time where I was like, holy shit, I think she actually is going to divorce me. And I do need to get my shit together because, I was 50 pounds heavier. I had no sex drive. A guy that was an athlete at one point who was in the gym all the time. I didn't even care if I saw the gym. So it started off from a personal, like, how do I get my stuff together? And then going through the process, being gaslit as a patient, like so many other Americans, when it comes to preventative and proactive care, the entrepreneur in me was like, ding, 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 ding. Like, if I'm getting gaslit and I know how to navigate and charter these turbulent waters as a patient who's trying to get better and not go down the sick care side of things, then so many others have to be. And it was that, like, we've been at it 2 years on the men's side, 1.5 years on the women's side. And, seeing the community respond and getting the messages we get and seeing the results that we get from patients is like, shit, we did do the right thing. Now it's not easy, but we know there's this massive opportunity and market to just get people healthier.
Man, so 2 years in, and you have so many like amazing testimonials on both of the men and the women's side. So did the women's health, and I don't think we've even mentioned the names of either of your companies. So you can start with that, Katie, if you'd like. But so that was born 6 months after Blokes. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. And the women's side is Joy, and it's spelled Joi. So some people say Joie, which is also
fancy.
And, it was funny because when he, had the idea to start Blokes and something for men based off his journey, I was supportive, but was not planning on being involved at all. I was really focused on having our, family, creating our family. But then it was, for me, it was after that. And after I went through a pretty rough fertility journey, after I had 2 babies, and then was in my low 40s when I was like, oh my gosh, I need help. And then I got it through the guys' side. And that's when I was like, okay, we can't just do this for guys, because once I felt the difference for myself, I felt like we were missing, we were missing helping women. And I think women need it more than ever as we try to, have everything, have our families and have our businesses and, have energy to do all of the things. So that's when we decided to join forces. And that's why Joy was started 6 months later.
Yeah. And I think from like just an overall consumer perspective is the power of the female consumer is so much better.
Yeah.
It's not just like our opinion. It's just a better consumer, and it's a far more abundant consumer, and it's one that takes action usually sooner. And they're also like the women, it's been great because it's also been an aggregator to push men to get healthier. When women control, majority of the household spending when it comes to health and just spending in general.
Yeah.
We were leaving a big, big opportunity off, not even knowing that. But then the personal attachment to it was like, oh, this makes it better. And this actually gives us passion behind it. It's not just, P&Ls and revenue.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going off script here because I want to know what the hell a peptide is.
Yeah, this is fascinating.
A woman in my mastermind group, I've seen her through the years, probably for a decade now, very big fluctuations in weight. And she came into the group this week, and I was stunned at how I said, oh my goodness, where's the rest of you? Like, she had really lost so much weight. And she said it was because of peptides. And she didn't have time to really fill me in on what that was. So we have experts here. I'd love to know.
Well, there could be several different things she was on, but peptides in general is a short chain of amino acids versus a protein, which is a longer chain. So that's how you can think of it. And we've got thousands running naturally in our body, and what they do is help your cells perform specific tasks. So I think of it like a key opening a door. Like it'll help your hair grow, or it'll help your skin, have elasticity. It can help you lose weight. So that's what peptides are. And we've been using peptide therapy for, I don't know how many decades now, but I feel like they're having a moment now.
Of years. Well, and you have to understand, like, they've been around for so long that what you're seeing, the emergence of peptides is really in this anti-aging community. And that, people rarely classify, the GLP-1 category, medication category, which is Ozempic and Mounjaro and Wegovy. That is a peptide. That is not like its own category. It is part of the peptide family. And, GLP is a glucagon-like peptide. And that's why you're seeing so much rage about this. But, it's been around for decades and decades and decades. And really the biggest, most abundant peptide that's used right now in existence is insulin. And, there's roughly 65 to 70 different FDA approved peptides, and they're going to keep going out, because what's amazing about a peptide typically is it's telling your body to produce more of that certain peptide in certain ways. So it's a really safe and effective approach to not really doing anything but aiding your body in that benefit.
I went into Ulta recently and I was looking for some retinol cream for my crow's feet.
Yep.
And she said, "You don't need that anymore. Just you need peptides." I was like, "What?" So I got some, but I don't know if they're working.
Yeah. And there's like, I like so many things when the market like starts getting crazy, like people just start saying everything's a peptide. And what we deal with specifically are pharmaceutical grade peptides that are driven by prescription only. We don't have like a face cream. Well, we do have a GHKCU that's a very high level pharmaceutical grade peptide that can be used for face cream. But when we're talking,
I need to send you that.
Yes.
When we're talking like what you're doing, it's this is bound by a prescription. It is done under medical supervision, and to your Ulta, it would be like, I guess like taking an aspirin over the counter versus taking a pain medication that's prescribed. It's just a different level.
That's a really good, helpful analogy. So the telehealth part of both of your businesses seems to be kind of a differentiator. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I think it's accurate in a few ways. And then I think maybe you could see some holes in it as well. The emergence of telehealth really, it's been around for years, but it really got put into fast track with COVID. Yes. And kind of like what we dealt with the regenerative medicine clinics when the regulatory aspect of, the states was in place, like there was no way to actually conduct, medicine. Like it was done virtually, like it had to be done. And when you had elective procedures that required somebody to put their hands on a patient, surgery or what we did, it was just shut down. So the accessibility of telehealth is amazing. But when you look at it from the customer acquisition piece and the retention piece and that rapport and building, you might say there's, some holes in it, but from a convenience perspective, you can't beat it if it's done right. Like,
Totally.
The fact that we can conduct everything that we do minus getting labs done by, human interaction, like physically being touched by somebody. But then everything shows up at your home and you're doing it yourself at your time, at your convenience. Like that's hard to beat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think honestly, the days of rapport building with doctors are long, long gone. I always feel rushed anyway. So might as well
you and the rest of the country. I mean, it's the average primary care visit's 9 to 12 minutes. The average time that it takes a patient from the time they leave their doorstep to the time they get back home from their doctor is anywhere between 3 and 4 hours. And it usually takes anywhere from 21 to 26 days for somebody to actually go see a doctor when they're trying to schedule it. So it's a trend that should be disrupted.
Mm-hmm. I started using Nurx, the app Nurx, Nurx.
I don't know it.
Instead of going to my dermatologist because of that very reason. Just everything you just said is exactly all the pain points. And, now I can take a picture and they can send me what I need in the mail 3 days later.
Oh, that's crazy.
So, yeah. Okay. Veering back on because we do want to know about how your relationship and your businesses intersect.
Yeah, so what are each of your roles in Bloke and Joy?
Basically everything.
Oh, that's a loaded question.
I mean, when you're an entrepreneur, you need to do everything. Yep. We have really great people working for us, so I don't want to diminish that at all. There's, definitely people on our team that we couldn't live without, doing great things. But I think it does feel like the majority of everything, lands on us. But in general, I am, the face and the driver behind the women's brand, and then he, drives the men's brand. But we are one company, so we have, all the same staff that we manage, and we're in it in the day-to-day stuff, in all the meetings, and we're driving the marketing and
everything. I mean, we are, we're not at a point where we can lend everything off. Like we can't pass it off. I mean, nobody will ever care about your business more than you.
Yeah.
But we do have phenomenal talent and people that are working for us that can drive it. But we're even in the Instagram comments. We're professional hat now. There's so much about the look and the feel, the patient experience, how everything comes together. And I think for us as leaders, as we grow, as we scale, we have to be able to, pass off those duties to the right people, because it's not always easy. And you're just never going to get an employee to care as much as you do about the business.
Totally agree. So since you are doing everything and it sounds like you're doing them together, I imagine you might run into some, dust ups every now and then.
Yeah.
Dust ups.
Are there... Please go into that, or tell us if there are kind of common ones that you bump into.
Yeah, I think you were a little annoyed at me today, but this morning, one of the challenging things is we have very active kids that are young, and going from kid duty to founder duty to kid duty, it's tedious, and it doesn't even matter if you're amazing at it. It's relentless, and it's sometimes fun and amazing, and sometimes it's really grueling. But so we have the role of two hats, and two very important ones: parents and founders. And sometimes one takes priority over the other, but it's inevitably, it's never going to be roses. And it's just really I think, communicating and trying to be cognizant of each other's feelings and strengths and weaknesses, and knowing when, I saw some influencer was like, there are some days where dad has to give 80% and mom gets 20, and vice versa. And I think it's the same thing with running a business. There are some days where it's not 50-50. It's like Josh is going to have to do a little bit more work, and Katie may need to take an hour or two off from investor calls. There's a lot of hats, and I think it's just knowing one another and trying to minimize the dust ups.
So are those formally kind of spelled out anywhere where, I'm going to take the kids these days, and then I'm going to shift to the business. And then is it kind of, or is it just, you just are in the flow and whoever needs to do it picks it up and runs with it?
Yeah, I think there are like duties that we tend to have more often, but we're also like in the flow. And some nights Katie's making dinner, and some nights I am. And
I feel like most nights we're actually like ordering in, or cooking has fallen to the wayside. I think it's been hard for us lately in general, because we're in such a grinding phase of our business where we're working on scaling. And so there's so many moving parts, and we're not just like in a comfortable spot where it's like everybody has their role. It's like pretty dynamic. And I think the challenging thing with us, and this is probably true with most people, but we are very different people and have different styles. So it's very masculine. And I have noticed that I tried to keep up with him for quite a while, and I'm now just realizing and voicing that I just can't. We have different styles. We do things differently. And I cannot, I am way more, in my feminine energy. And so I've had to like communicate that to you, just to let you know, like, this is just how it's going to be, because I can't match that energy.
I want to like clarify that. I think we just have different skill sets. And, there might be relationships, male and female, where, the female is a little bit more A-type, and I wouldn't even consider myself A-type.
You wouldn't?
I like to just go. I like to be busy, and like, I don't mind jumping from one call to another. I feel like I do a pretty good job at understanding my day before I get into the day, and I get my mind right. But I've also just been, maybe going at too much of a pace for such a long time, and I just adjusted to it and become used to it. We also have like a personal life that she has to help manage too. So like sometimes she does have to pull back on the gas, because I don't do that very well.
Yeah.
Do what?
Pull back.
I don't pay bills. I don't look at bank accounts. Like I'm going to just grind, and not in a bad way. It's just like, that's what I feel comfortable doing.
Business Partners Podcast is proudly brought to you by Apple and Anchor.
Apple and Anchor create strategy-first brands and websites for startups.
As a busy business owner, you may have a great idea for your branding or website, but feel overwhelmed about what's required to bring it to life.
We provide a clear, step-by-step plan for your brand strategy, visual identity, and web design.
Check out our work and book a clarity call at appleandanchor.com.
And now, back to the show.
Do you know your Enneagram types? I'm curious now.
The what types?
No, we haven't done that.
The what?
So Enneagram, I honestly think it's like I don't think it's a out west kind of a thing. I think it's like in this region.
I think it's a Southeast thing.
Yeah. Well, maybe, have you done DISC? It's a personality. What?
Yeah.
So who?
Yeah, I did in college.
Oh, okay.
So it'd be really interesting to take that now and see how I did. But I remember I was a very high D and a very high I.
Katie, do you know?
We're like, I was like D and I were like here, and S and T were like here.
Same. How about you, Katie? Do you have?
I haven't heard of that one, but maybe we should. I mean, would that help us like tell us how to balance each other out and work together better?
Yeah. I mean,
Enneagrams helped us out quite a bit.
Yeah, it has. Either one. I mean, really the idea is you just have, you walk away with a deeper understanding of, maybe it's not really within reason for me to expect that he does these things, because it's just, it would be like Josh trying to do one of the S things in the DISC profile. It's not going to, it's going to take long, and it's going to be frustrating for everybody. So how can we strategically, delegate
that
based on
sense.
Your natural, personality types. So
that makes sense. But I do feel like we figure that out just through life. Like I can tell you, like, I will really hesitate to ask him to do any handyman work. I will either do it myself or I will hire somebody because I know it's not his skill set. But he's an incredible entrepreneur. So, you can't have.
I cook well.
You can't have everything.
I'm decent in business. I
can list a lot of great qualities, but
you can't have them all.
The light bulb is.
But hey, you know that, so that's what's
light
important.
bulb is in my skill set, but asking me to do anything beyond that is not.
What do you guys enjoy most about working together?
I think that's an easy one.
What is it?
It's the wins, sharing those together. And it's funny as an entrepreneur because I think we will joke about this. In one day, you can have so many ups and downs. I mean, you can be like totally depressed thinking it's all going to end. And then also on top of the world thinking like you've made it, within minutes.
Yes.
But it is really fun to have the wins and see something come to fruition that you guys have worked on together. You need, if you didn't have that person to share it with, it wouldn't be as fun, I imagine.
Yeah.
I think that is like probably the biggest thing. I also just like from a trusting standpoint, we're fortunate that we do, I think, work well together mostly. I mean, there are days where we're like, you need to go to the office or whatever. But to be so strategically aligned financially, structurally, and to know that somebody's always has your back and the way the decision is actually coming together. Like it's like talking to, let's say, a sales manager who's, where maybe they're kind of positioning themselves in a different way. Like we're very what we eat or what we kill is what we eat. Like that's what we're doing. And like every decision that we make is for the business and for our family. And it would be really interesting to see like another dynamic in this current business because, I just think that it's something that we don't really talk about, but like that's something that's important to me because like I trust Katy. If I'm actually asking for a solid opinion, it's in a universal approach. It's not just her microcosm,
So do you ever turn it off? Do you guys have boundaries around we're not talking about business, whatever? Like, have you defined that?
Probably not often enough. I mean, we do date nights, which are great, but we usually end up talking about business or, your kids. So
yeah, which the last guests we interviewed described their business as their third kid.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair. Like, how are you not going to talk about your other kid?
Yeah. And like, we're also, we're in our 40s. Like, what else do we have to do?
Right.
I mean, we plan some trips every once in a while, which is awesome. But like, even when we're at the trips, we're like, fuck, this is amazing. Like, we have to think about work for a second, But like, it's not like we have these crazy lives, outside of this. Like, we're so indebted to our family and our, I think maybe we could probably do a better job at having some more personal time, like you go with your girls and me. But this is our life.
Right. So no boundaries, it sounds like. Hey, I respect it. I get it.
We tried. Like, I know we've been at dinner before and we're like, okay, let's not talk about work. And then like 15 minutes later, like, hey, did you ever think about this? Because like, that just popped in my head and I need to tell you. And it goes both ways.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, no, and then she does it and I do it. And then we're like, fuck it. Let's just get
I
on.
know. Yes. It almost feels futile to even try. I'm curious. You mentioned, being in the grind. Joy, 1.5 years old, 2 years old for Blokes. We're Blokes.
Blokes.
Thank you. We'll be 2 years. Our business will be in January.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not chasing investor money, which I feel like is a whole nother level of stress you guys are in the middle of. but we can identify with how difficult it is to get something new off the ground. So what keeps you guys going?
I believe in what we're doing to our core. Like we are looking at like investors because of the momentum we have, not because we're lacking profit, not because we're lacking growth, not because we're lacking revenue. I think it's an interesting time to try to raise money, but we'll take on the right investor when the right investor comes. But it is a whole different game having those conversations, having that like granularity to your business and the questions they ask. But I think this can be a big opportunity for our families for a long time. And before we started this business, I was like, let's do something big. Fuck it. Like I've had like what I would consider pretty good success with businesses that I know have a course, or like it's going to be a 3-year run, and or it's consolidated to this market, where I felt like this one was interesting because the cap is big. It's a big, like, this is billions of dollars that we could, turn this into. And whether that happens or not, that's not the goal, but like, I just think it's a fun opportunity and fun business to be in too. And, I think the milestones, even though we may not have them on a whiteboard that we're continuously setting, is a big motivator. Like seeing these things come together, the conversations we're having behind the scenes with big players and partners and A-list Hollywood people. It's not why you do it, but it's a fun business to be in because people want to get healthy, and we're changing lives.
I don't know what we would do if all of a sudden it stopped. That's for sure. that might take some big soul searching to figure out what it is, because this is really all we've been thinking about for a little while now. So,
yeah, it's an interesting phase of where we're at, because we're at this inflection point of, we're almost at a point where we probably shouldn't take investors. But we're at that point where we're like, shit, a $10 million injection of capital could put us at $100 million pretty quickly. And, but you're taking on investors and you're having people sit at the cap table that maybe you wouldn't want it to, but to get there. And we have a friend, Katy's become friends with the CEO of Primal Kitchen, Morgan. And, it's always like here's the investor shoulder, and then here's the Morgan shoulder, because she's like, listen, we really didn't raise any capital, and we sold at $200 million. We had 95% equity in our company. Selling at $200 million with 95%, what's the equivalent of that at $2 billion when you've given up 50-60% of your company over time? So it's a balance.
Well, like you said, you're not necessarily, it's not a have to. It would be kind of a nice to. So you can be choosy, which is a great position to be in. Which leads me to my next question, which isn't on the script, but I have to know, how did you grow so quickly? How did you go from no one knowing about you to having, being profitable?
Very stressful.
I think it was a necessity too. I mean, we've always had, you have to make money to feed your family, right? Yes. So we've always run this business to figure, in a way where you have to make money in order to keep going, right?
Yeah, but I will tell you, it was a very tumultuous period. When we first launched this company, I don't think a lot of people know this, but like we had 0 leads coming in. There was not like our marketing plan that was our marketing plan actually failed. And, we had hired a gal that was going to be our marketing guru that literally didn't bring in a single fucking lead. Months. And we all of a sudden had to pivot, right? And we ran into telehealth issues with Google. We ran into telehealth issues with Meta. We ran into just all kinds of issues, and that we didn't forecast. And like we're kind of scrappy, or not kind of, we are scrappy. And I'm like, we got to pivot. And I said, Katie, I need everybody that in our email list, and I'm going to give my email list, and I'm going to just blast this to everybody and tell them exactly what we're doing. And that's going to be the start of it. And one's going to turn into two, and two's going to turn into four. But it was like that for like a solid 6 months. And then we finally found somebody that could help us grow from a marketing perspective, an ad perspective, in a decent capacity without us like overspending and putting ourselves in even deeper hot water. And, I'm a big believer on like, you got to be your own megaphone. And, there's not many places I go that I don't tell people like what I do and how it's changed my life and how it's impacted my life. And then there was just a couple, small wins that turned into bigger wins, but it was hard. Like I felt like the last January 20, we're in 23, right?
Yeah.
January 23 was like a light bulb moment for us where we said, holy shit, we can do this.
Wow.
And December and November and October and September that year was like watching paint dry. It was like, holy shit, we are struggling to get leads. We are paying way more than what we can actually afford to just keep the band together. And then all of a sudden we just saw all the hard work from 6 months ago start to pay off, a year ago start to pay off. And that ranged from our marketing to our social media to our conversations. And then, I was like, holy shit, I think we can do this.
Wow.
And that was really the chart of the growth. I mean, we've had almost 14 months of month over month growth, some months big, some months, smaller, but it's been pretty profound to see.
I think the benefit of having a smaller business is that you can be flexible and pivot when because that is a big part, I think, of launching a business, is being able to know when you need to pivot and change.
Absolutely. When you hired the marketing team for the second time, what was the most successful tactic to get leads?
Well, the first successful tactic was actually being able to get leads through Google and Meta,
Gotcha.
and because they're, we talked about telehealth and the access and all that, but there's a regulatory component that's different than owning a brick and mortar health clinic. And, that we were not as aware of, that you just have to be able to navigate. I mean, even like payment merchants like Stripe, there's a regulatory component to that with telehealth. That's different than a brick and mortar. So it was honestly able to penetrate that layer and just get some things going. And, we have sticky products. We have products that actually work really well. And, we were just talking to an investor yesterday. We were like, they're a big investor in AG1 athletic greens. And it's like, yeah, that's great, but our products are way better. And feel it. You know what I mean? Like if you guys, and I flat out told them this, I said, if you can make that $1 billion company for a product that tastes okay, but you don't really know if it's working, you think it's working, you're doing a big screen and it looks cool, our products work. So I think that's helped too.
Wow. I'd say so.
He's a big believer. He believes hard in this. So
well, I'm a big believer because it saved my marriage. I've lost 40 pounds and we get countless testimonials of the same thing. I mean, we don't say it like in like cheeky tone. We really mean it. Like we truly believe we've saved marriages.
Yeah.
Outside of ours and proved, intimacy and got people back in the gym and feeling a zest and a vigor for their life that they hadn't seen in 10, 15, 20 years. So, good, bad, or ugly, our products, they work, and sometimes they work too much and people are like, whoa, that's too much. And sometimes they're like, man, the proof is in the pudding of the therapies as well. And then the service has to match that.
Yeah. Well, I just want to underline what you said about you're a megaphone for your own self. You're constantly talking about and advocating for your own business. I heard a quote last night. This business owner said a closed mouth doesn't get fed.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really good one. It's so true. And I think often we can take it for granted, like walking around in the world. People don't want to hear about our stuff, but closed mouth doesn't get fed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about like health goals and just any goal, like the more people you tell, the more accountable you're going to be to yourself. And I gave like the analogy of like, if you're going to run a marathon and you really want to run it, you're going to start telling everybody about it because they're going to go, how's the marathon training going? If you're just kind of half-ass committed, you do it yourself. You're going to run 2 miles on the treadmill. They're going to run 3. But if you get on a little megaphone, you start posting out on social, whether you like it or not, like people are going to start saying, hey, they're checking in, and you're going to hold yourself accountable to a different standard. And, if you can't be your best advocate in your business, then who else can?
Yes, absolutely agree.
So what's your future vision for Blokes and Joy?
World domination. No, I actually don't like my competitors. Not that I do, but I'm honest about it. I hope we're a household name, in 3 years, 4 years, where people are aligning us with a company that really wants to improve somebody. And whether it's through just labs or supplementation or the actual therapies, like I hope people recognize us as being a leader and just disrupting sick care and powering their journey in health and wherever that is, whether it's getting out and getting your steps in, or whether it's running a marathon or an Ironman. Like I hope that we are synonymous with that. That paraphrase, just they're making me better.
Would you add anything to that, Katie?
I just hope I can keep up with him.
The reality is like we have a good team and we got to hire the right way. We got to hire the right people. I think one of the hard things is knowing where and when to hire, and maybe not at the last minute, because the value of amazing talent is invaluable. It's so valuable. It's the best thing we can do. So we have to be able to recognize that as leaders.
I will say one thing, and this is one of the reasons I fell in love with Josh, is I do think he has this special thing about him, and I think he was meant to do something special. And so, when I joke about keeping up with him, it's not that I'm putting myself down or, diminishing my role, but I really, I believe in Josh. And I think that's a fun reason that, that we get to work together, and it's a fun part about, what we do as a couple too.
What a transformation, going from threatening divorce to being his biggest cheerleader.
Always on the table, but no.
the sex is actually there and much better. So,
thanks to supplements.
Right?
I have enjoyed this conversation so much, and I wish we could keep talking, but to be respectful to your time, would you leave us with a tip for other business partners, other couples who are working together? What advice could you give?
I think empathy goes a long way, and understanding, the strengths and weaknesses, like we mentioned before, of your partner, and allowing them to do things how they need to do it, and allowing that space for your partner.
That's great.
Yeah, I just, the more I age and the more I've been in business, like it all happens for the right reasons, one way or another. But if you're actually putting in the effort and the time, it will all happen for the right reasons, and it will come together. If you're not doing that, then you only have yourself to blame. But one of the things that I've had to learn through this business is the power of patience. I'm not patient, but it is. If you had asked me a year and a half ago, like where these businesses would have been, I would have said we'd probably be doing something else because it's not working. And if you asked me today, I think these can be, unicorn style companies or brands.
So the advice is stick with it.
Stick with it and be patient and be relentless. Like, wake up and do the right things. Like sometimes going through the motions is better than not going through them. And, I had a friend a long time ago. This was with another business, but, I was in med device sales for many years. And he's like, this is when I went off on my own as an entrepreneur, like when that word was not sexy. Like, man, I just fucking hate working for the man. Like, do you ever just not want to work for the man? And I'm like, dude, I don't want to fucking work for myself sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, guess what? I just get up and I do it. And some days are better and some days are worse. But as long as there's more better days, then I'm going to be fine.
It seems like even the worst days as an entrepreneur you're still the better boss than another guy.
100%. 100%.
Well, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your mornings to talk with us. This has been awesome.
Okay. Awesome. This
Thanks
was
for
so
having
great.
us.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Yes, likewise.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in to Business Partners.
Find out more about our guests and follow their businesses through the links in our show notes.
Don't forget to rate, review, and share the show with your favorite business partners.
Special thanks to our sponsor, Apple and Anchor.
Now let's get back to business.